Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Good
Okay.
morning.
Good job.
Everybody. Anyone want to feeling compelled to share some good news? Anyone got anyone under contract lately? Anyone add anyone to the database? Did anyone do some surprising and delighting that we talked about over the weekend?
I added several agents to my database from family reunion, so I thought that was good. I made a lot of connections and did a lot of personal, back and forth chatting. So
Can you
felt
give us
like
that is awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah,
How
sure.
did you approach it? What did you say? What did you like? What do you expect to happen next? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I had those suggested agents come up on my platform, my family reunion platform. I guess they were like a good match for whatever I put in as my bio.
Yep.
So I reached out to all of those folks. I just asked them if they had a referral partner in the Atlanta area. And if not, I was interested in becoming referral partners. And I specified whatever area they were in as being an area that I was interested in finding a partner in. And then we just chatted about different things. Like one of them is in Portland, Maine. And we talked about my visit to Portland. There was another one in Cincinnati, and we talked about how I had some interest in investment property around the new Major League Soccer stadium in Cincinnati. Just conversation like that. There were a couple in Florida, a couple in California, North Carolina,
Love that.
Alabama. So I just tried to kind of branch out, and I'm not finished. I want to keep doing that. So.
That's awesome. That is exactly what I wanted you to do. That is exactly what I wanted you to do.
Oh, and I have one guy in Italy too.
Okay. I have my friend just taught in KW Italy on Zoom yesterday, and he had a translator on board, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I want you to think real closely about what are you going to do to like the energy is real high, you're real excited today, and I have no doubt that you'll create this. I just want to give you a few ideas and remind everyone how important the follow-up is, right? What is your strategy to make sure that you keep those relationships active and that you make sure that you're delivering the appropriate value to them based on what their desires are?
Well, I'm not sure about the value piece. I'm not sure. I told them in my initial intro that no one was going to work harder for their referral clients than I would. So my plan is I've already added them in the referral part in command, and I'm going to send them each a handwritten note.
Yep.
And I just plan on staying in contact on a regular basis, maybe on a monthly basis, just to stay in touch, just to see how they're doing. See if I have something to share, I can share with them to help them in their business. That's sort of my plan.
I love that. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a script that you use successfully. It could be a new piece of technology that you found to be valuable. It could be a trick on command because they're dealing with that network as well. It could be an example of a home, like, hey, here's an example of a home in the suburbs close to the airport, close to all the IT jobs and all these kind of things. Here's what you can buy for $450 or whatever. Was thinking about you today, right? I think you're onto something there. What if half of them sent you a piece of business each year? Would that would that be crazy? Like, would that be unheard of? No, not at all.
I mean, it'd be awesome.
There's 10 deals right there.
One of them's in Savannah too, so I figured, excuse me, that's a good partner to have because, we may be able to meet sort of halfway, I guess, in a sense. If something's way too far for her, maybe I can do it. If it's way too far for me, she can do it.
Love that. Great job, Donna. Great job.
Okay, thanks.
I think we should all be having agent databases, right? Who are the agents that when we have some information we want to share with the world? Hey, I got a buyer that needs this. Hey, I got a seller that needs this. Hey, I'm looking for a plumber, whatever it may be. Do you have a network of agents, like-minded agents inside and outside of Keller Williams that could help you, or inside and outside of Metro Atlanta that can help you? So great. That's awesome, Donna. That's super awesome. All right, I got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right into sharing my screen and to going and talking about the seller checklist. Give me one moment. All right, while we're waiting on this, I just want to remind you that this week, guys, is packed with market center classes that, in my opinion, are worthwhile going to. Today, there is a new agent boot camp from 2 to 3:30. All of these sessions, by the way, are on kwroswelltraining.com. So new agent retreat / boot camp, that's from 2 to 3:30 today. Joanne and Tom Curtin are doing a wealth building class from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock tomorrow. John Serrano, who leads the Atlanta Property Professionals, Aubrey's old team, is doing their buyer presentation from 11 to 12. That's on Thursday. And then the 90 Days to Greatness for both new agents and experienced agents is with Robin and Aubrey is Friday morning, right after our session. One from 9:30 to 10:15 and one from 10, it's probably an error, 10:15 to 10:45. Okay. And then Aubrey's teaching Living Your Goals from 1:30 to 3:30 on Friday. All that is on kwroswelltraining.com. So guys, don't forget to look at the newsletter and look at the calendar. There is tons of stuff available, tons and tons of stuff. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the seller checklist. Okay, like we said yesterday, this document is in the Google Drive. I will go ahead and share it in the WhatsApp now, just so you can find it easily. This is similar to the buyer checklist that we reviewed yesterday. Okay, the idea here is it is a shared, or in my case, it was a shared document with all the people that are involved in running the. Hang on, let me make this a little bit larger. It's a shared document with respect to all the people that are doing the work, right? So if you're a solo agent, it's not necessarily a shared document, but in my case, this was a document that myself and my assistant shared because she had some tasks for each file to do, and I had some tasks for each file to do. Okay, so as a reminder, yesterday, if it was written in regular font, it was my job, and if it was written in bold, it was her job, the assistant's job. Okay, remember, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant, right? I used to joke like I was the real estate agent from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and I was the real estate agent's assistant from 8 p.m. until I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. And I did that for years until I could afford an assistant, because I needed to buy back my time and I wanted to spend time outside of real estate doing stuff too. Okay. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we have the seller intake sheet. Remember, that's also in the Google Drive. The seller intake sheet is, remember, it's basically a lead sheet. Once you get it exactly the way you want it to read, my recommendation is you print out a bunch of them, and anytime that you're on a call and the call goes from, I'm not sure this is going anywhere, business-wise, I should say, to, oh my gosh, I might have a seller here, you just reach over and you grab it, and it's right here.
Hey, Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you make that where we can make a copy and edit it down? Because right now I only have read-only access.
On what I just posted?
Yeah, because I was trying to get on it. I can see you on it, and it says read-only, and I don't have the option to make a copy.
Okay, what about what I just posted in the announcements page? Because that's an Excel file. You should be able to edit that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm on the one you're on because I can see you on it when I look at mine. And I was going to make a copy, and then I like to edit it and add notes in there as you're talking.
Yeah, if you're
so
able,
I couldn't do it.
If you're able, check the one that I just put on the announcements page and see if you can edit it there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. I just posted that, and I'll post the buyer one a little bit later. Okay, so we have the seller intake sheet. That is basically, it's basically the pre-qualification questions for the seller, right? Things like, you know, what has you thinking about moving? What's most important to you about the move? Do you have a time frame in mind? Have you been researching values? Have you been interviewing other agents? Have you ever considered selling it by yourself, right? Tell me a little bit about the property. Questions like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank? You know, 1 is the home is a complete disaster. 10 is everything is perfect. It's perfect inside the home. It's perfect outside the home. It's in the most perfect school district. Everyone wants it. Everything is perfect, right? And they say, oh, my home's an 8. Say, oh, 8, great. So tell me, what would have to happen for it to be a 10? Oh, well, I'd have to repaint the whole interior, and I'd have to spend some money on the exterior landscaping, and it would need to be in a better school district. Okay, jot all that stuff down, because those are the objections that a buyer is going to have most likely. You follow it? And now they have vocalized the fact that they know their home isn't perfect. And if their home isn't a 10, in normal circumstances, it's a little different right now, but if their home is not a 10, it ain't going to get a 10 price. Make sense? Okay, so after I've done the intake, now I have a piece of a sheet worth of data for this new prospect, right? Or I have additional data if the person was already, let's say, in my database, okay? And I would send out a little thank you video. Hey, it was so great to chat with you. I'm so excited for the opportunity to continue to answer your questions and to do blah, 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 because most of the time there's at least one promise you made them on the phone, right? I'll send you the name of a painter. I'll send you the name of a lender. I'll send you some listings that you'll be competing against. Whatever you want to make a promise so that you can deliver on the promise, right? So I'll make it where it is a personalized message where it doesn't appear like it's you know, that I send the same thing to every single person. Does that make sense? Next is update the client database. Again, now there's new data. So in our situation, what we would do is I just take a picture of it and Skype it to her and to my assistant, and she'd put it in the system. Okay. If you don't mind, put yourself on mute. If it seems like it's coming from Greta, but Greta's on mute. I don't get it. If you're not on mute, if you could put yourself on mute, that'd be awesome. Okay, next we're gonna go on the listing appointment. Okay, what I didn't put in here, I should have put in here, is sending out the pre-listing package. Okay, I'll add that. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and add it right this second. Send pre-list package. One thing that I think is a little bit confusing, to be honest, I'm going to try to clear it up right now, is whenever somebody says the listing presentation, like when you go on command and you look to see what the listing presentation is, in my eyes, that's more like the pre-listing package. Okay. The idea there is the pre-listing package / listing presentation is supposed to pre-sell working with you and working with Keller Williams. The listing presentation itself is basically just a series of questions, right? Many of which are a repeat of the pre-qualification questions. You really get an understanding of what it's going to take to be their partner and what's most important to them, right? And then you look at the data together and then you close, right? But the idea of the pre-listing presentation is so that you don't have to spend, you know, 2 hours going through paper after paper after paper after paper. Does that make sense? So whenever you see an example of a listing, what they call a listing presentation online, it's most likely actually what you should use for your pre-list. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So I go on the listing appointment, okay? Remember, you should expect to get the business. So always bring some paperwork just in case they're ready for it, okay? Bring some blank disclosure statements. If there's a community association disclosure statement or a seller's property disclosure statement, go ahead and bring those. Say, hey, you know, take a look at this. Go ahead and, you know, get your files organized. You know, go back through your notes if you need to see, you know, when did you replace the water heater and that kind of stuff. So take a little time to get this stuff completed, assuming that you're going to get the deal, right? That you want to behave with the assumption you're going to get the business, okay? And you can leave a copy of the listing agreement there if it doesn't get signed so that they can review it, okay? Now I have new information, so I'm going to update the client database again, right? Now I know their dog's name is Tiger, I know their daughter's name is Mary, whatever it is, I've got new information now that I've spent more time with them, so I want that to be in the system as well. So I might, as I'm leaving the home, you know, put in, we used to use Skype back before WhatsApp, basically say, hey, Luke, daughter's name is this, son goes to this school, they love hockey, right? And boom, that would appear in the system. So it was eternalized and I wouldn't have to think, you know, I just know it next time, okay? Now I'm going to search and research for information to share with the seller. That's going to be like comparables and what's active on the market that they might be competing against, et cetera. The assistant was going to create a Google Drive file for the client. Remember I suggested, I'll go ahead and suggest, I think that you should have a backup to everything. So if you have everything solidified in Command, I do believe it's important to have a secondary file. So everything that was fully executed, I had in a client file on Google Drive, and then I could just access it very quickly from my cell phone, okay? We're gonna create an opportunity. We're gonna share the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, and lead-based disclosure if we don't already hand it to them when we're with them. We're gonna upload the seller checklist. That is what we're looking at right now, okay? We're going to upload and edit the seller information sheet. This is a document. Let me show you this real fast. This is I used this document primarily for sellers, but a little bit of a reduced one, if you will, for buyers. And I also added this to the client file. Again, I know a lot of this stuff that you can do in Command. You got to understand a lot of when I was, you know, working in high gear, Command didn't even exist. So we had to create a lot of systems for this. So you can use Command, or you can, I think that it's nice to have something like this very easy and accessible. So it'd have the seller's contact information, the purchaser's contact information, what's the FMLS number, Georgia MLS number, list date, expiration date, original list price, current list price, seller contact information, lockbox number, CBS code, right? Once the deal went under contract, now I have some more information to fill out. Buyer's agent's information, right? So I don't have to go into the contract all the time and search for their, you know, their license number and stuff, right? It's right here. Purchase price. Did the seller agree to pay closing costs? What's the earnest money? Who's it held by? What type of loan and down payment do we have? Is there a home warranty? Is there anything abnormal or specific about this client file that I need to remind myself of? Right? Offer date, binding agreement date, earnest money date, due diligence date, financing contingency deadline, appraisal, home sale contingency, closing, possession, right? So all the big rocks of this transaction, I've got right here, right? Who's the lender? Who's the how do I reach them? Who's the closing attorney? How do I reach them? And in my case, like, what's the listing agent's information? Because half the time I'm not going to be dealing with the file administratively, the assistant is. And so this is an easy way for the assistant to handle some of those requests. Okay, I know what you're going to say, so I'll go ahead and do it right now. I will put this into the announcements page right now as well. Okay. So we would upload that document and begin to fill it out as much as possible. Normally, I probably would have done this a little earlier in the process, but I would email Kern for the legal description. Right? Remember that the legal description is basically the way that the county identifies the property. It has stuff like, you know, district, lot, land lot, plat book page number, you know, that kind of stuff. You can subscribe to a service. It's a couple bucks a month, but I always would just email Kern and say, hey, I'm working with seller, you know, Bob Jones. He owns 123 Hill Street in Smyrna. And that is Cobb County. If they know the name of the seller or the name of the owner, the address, and the county, it's very easy for them to pull it up, okay? If you forget to include all that stuff, if they need help finding it, they'll ask you a follow-up question, but that's the primary information that you would share with them to get them to send you the legal description really quickly, okay? I'm going to go ahead and send over the listing agreement if they have not signed it in writing. You don't need it to be signed electronically. If you have an opportunity for something to be signed in person, just get it signed in person and upload it later. Okay. Add entry to CTE. That was kind of a system that I used prior to Command. You can ignore that. Upload coal list to the Google Drive file. So now I've got a new listing. So what did I want to do when I had a new listing? I wanted to call the neighbors and tell them that I had a new listing, right? So I've been using coal for a long time, right? 5, 6, 7 years or maybe more. And so my assistant would upload those 1,500 names to the Google Drive. And so I just have to go and click the Google Drive, open it up and start calling. Okay. Letting people know that I got a coming soon, or I'm looking for buyers already. I've signed an agreement to work with Mr. and Mrs. Smith over at 123 Hill Street. We're going to be putting their 4-bed, 2.5 bath home on the market. Gosh, you're going to love the kitchen. Do you have anyone in your network that's considering moving? Right. And I'm drumming up opportunity. It's doing a number of things. Number one, it's showing the neighbors that I'm working hard for the seller, right? Oftentimes I would say something like, I made a commitment to the seller or to Mr. and Mrs. Jones that I would be calling the neighbors. So that's why I'm calling you, right? And they're like, ooh, this guy makes commitments. You see what I'm saying? Words are very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Okay. I might get some pushback from this. It wouldn't be the first time, but reviewing disclosures with the seller, okay? Especially in a market that's as fast moving as this one, you want to have buttoned up files, okay? If the disclosure is sloppy, they're going to think the house is sloppy, okay? If they forget to check that the switch plate covers are included, tell them they need to check it if they intend to include them, okay? So as far as I'm concerned, the disclosure statement is draft number 1 until I feel it reads right, right? If they say something like basement flooded in 1994, it was fixed. Okay, that's not all that reassuring, right? What I would rather see is basement was flooded in 1994. Professional and licensed and insured contractors and the insurance company were called immediately. The repairs were done, signed off by the insurance company, and we've had no problems since. All paperwork and warranties are available, right? That's a lot more thorough. Which do you feel more confident in? You see what I'm saying? We're not lying. We're just being thorough. Does it make sense? Okay. I would also review the community association disclosure. Okay, as we've talked a little bit about, let's say, for example, I'm in a community and I bought, let's say 7 years ago. 7 years ago, there wasn't a transfer fee for new homeowners, okay? But as we know, basically raising HOA fees is pretty unpopular, right? So another way of creating revenue for the HOA fee or for the HOA is to ask for transfer fees for new homeowners. So maybe they had a vote to have a transfer fee, or they just decided to have a transfer fee, and I didn't have to pay it 6 years ago, so I don't disclose it on the thing and on the disclosure, and the paperwork says that if you don't disclose it, then the seller pays for it. But when the seller hears that they're the one supposed to pay for it, they look at the agents and say, why didn't you know about this? So oftentimes the agent's the one that ends up paying for it. Okay. So I take whatever they say and I go confirm it with the HOA myself. And if I find something that's different, I'll say, look, Mr. Jones, you got to fix this. We don't want to disclose the wrong information. So when I share that those disclosure statements, they are buttoned up. That looks sharp because they are looking for a way that if like I said, if the disclosure statements are sloppy, they're going to think the homeowner was sloppy with their home ownership. Does that make sense? Okay. And sloppy homeowners, by the way, they don't service their HVAC system twice a year, right? They don't clean their gutters as much as they should. They don't caulk and paint as often as they should. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're walking around a home and there's deferred maintenance all over the place, most buyers are saying to themselves, what am I not seeing? right? Okay, by this time, we're getting some signatures on all these documents. So I'm starting, every time I get something signed, I'm putting it in all the appropriate places, right? I'm scheduling the photographer. I'm editing the pictures. Don't be in such a hurry to list a home that you don't put good pictures in there, guys. That's the first thing they're looking for. Just tell everyone to hold off. We're getting pictures done. We're going to get them edited. We're going to get them organized, and we're going to hit the market with a bang. We're not listing the home and then putting pictures on 2 days later. That is a giant mistake. Okay. Okay, so there is a document called the dual entry form. That is copied in the Google Drive. It is basically a list of questions that the listing services are going to ask you. Things like, where are the attic steps? Does the home have sidewalks? Does the home have landscape lights? Does the home have a gate? You know, is the water heater gas or electric? Is the washing machine, or not washing machine, washing machine and dryer gas or electric, right? Some things that you might not think about when you're touring the home. I can't even tell you how many times I got home and I'm like, damn, does that neighborhood have sidewalks? I forgot to look, right? Does that home have, lights in the community or no? Man, I need to go back. You see what I'm saying? So it's a reminder of when you're touring the home, you should be going through making notes so you don't have to ask the seller, hey, by the way, is your gas water, is it gas water heater or electric water heater? You see what I'm saying? You should know that stuff because you toured the home, okay? I would also jot all that stuff down because I was sending that to my assistant so she could put it into the system because I was off working with the next person. Does it make sense?
Bill, I didn't hear where that form was at. Did you say it was a GAR form or one of your forms?
It is not a GAR form, but it is a form, I believe, that FMLS and Georgia MLS created together. It's called dual entry form, and it is in the Google Drive.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So then we're going to input everything into FMLS. There's a program called Ditto in Georgia MLS where you basically can access the FMLS file, and then you answer a couple of additional questions that Georgia MLS asks for that FMLS doesn't. Then it'll be an FMLS. Okay. I would email the FMLS data page, like the way the way it prints out, basically, to the seller and say, hey, here's your listing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help you. Please let me know if you have any questions or feedback or you want me to change anything, right? I'd update the super key information so I knew when the showing started that, I'd tie that super lockbox number to my, how do I say this? I tie the lockbox number to the FMLS number. So when the showing started and random agents started opening the lockbox, I'd be able to keep those agents separate from the other listings, right? I'd update KWLS. KWLS is a service within Command. They're about to completely revamp it. But the idea there is you want to identify the listing or claim the listing, and then there's some optimization you can do in KWLS as well. Okay, this is old school, but we used to create flyers. Okay, create a virtual tour, update the listing to social media, YouTube, blogging, etc. Sometimes I'd write a blog post about it. Sometimes I would do a social media alert. Okay, I'd go door knock 50 homes. So what we used to do is I'd door knock maybe 15 homes this way, to the right of the home, 15 homes to the left of the home, maybe 25 homes across the street. Say, hey, I'm Bill. Got any questions about the market? Let me know. Mr. and Mrs. Smith have hired me to market and sell their property. Super excited. Do you happen to know anyone that is considering moving to the area? Right? Because at all times, I was looking to create relationships or deepen relationships. Make sense? Okay, so now we have a feedback system for showings. So every time there was a showing, we'd send them a feedback request. And then once a week, we call the seller and say that we used to have homes on the market longer than 20 minutes back in the day. Okay, so like there would be like a week that went by where the home was still available, right? So we'd call them and say, hey, it's Friday. I'd promised I'd call you every Friday. If I don't call you on Friday, call the cops, something's wrong, right? And we had 4 showings this week, and this is what they said. What do you think?
Hey, Bill,
Yes, ma'am.
I got a question about the feedback. Like when I do showings and showing time, I get a couple of different feedback request forms. They're different. Do we get to choose that? Because I haven't had a listing, I don't know, but do we get to choose what feedback in showing time?
To be honest, I don't know the answer to that. I would dig into showing time a little bit and see. I can let me make a note of that. Hang on.
Bill, can I add in here?
Yeah.
So in showing time, you can set up a custom set of questions that you want to have answered for feedback, but it's within the showing time software.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you,
Mhm.
Candace. You know, I would keep that relatively short and sweet, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your client's interest level in the home? What is your favorite part of the home? What is your least favorite part of the home? Is there anything that I can provide to help you move forward? Right, super simple. Right, hang on one sec. Okay. Weekly call to the seller to update, receive and review offers with the seller. Okay, we have a binding agreement. Now I'm updating the seller information sheet because now I've got, I know the binding agreement date. I know whether there's closing costs. I know who the lender is. I know who the closing attorney is, right? I know all the information that I was missing, right, prior to getting a contract. Okay, we update the file in DocuSign. We update the file in Google Drive, right? So
It wasn't bothering me. I was actually listening to your audio.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, we shared the paperwork. So we shared the paperwork with all the other parties involved, which are the other agent, the attorney, the client, and we're not really necessarily sharing it with the lender because the buyer's agent's going to do that. Okay, we email all the deadlines to the buyer's agent and make sure that we're counting the days properly. Remember, binding agreement date is, think of it as day 0. The following day is day 1. All the days are calendar days, and they include weekends, federal holidays, etc. Okay, unless otherwise stated. Okay, we email a calendar of dates to the seller. We used to have like a cute little graphic where it was like, hey, earnest money due this day. These are the dates that the contingencies end. This is the day when you'll move, etc. You can put that up on their fridge or whatever. We change the status in Georgia MLS and FMLS. Send them a little video congratulating them. Okay. Luth is my assistant. She would update her calendar with all the deadlines too. Okay. We'd call seller to summarize the next steps. Hey, next thing that's going to happen, hey, congratulations. We're well on our way. Next thing that's going to happen is the buyer's going to request a home inspection, most likely. You're going to have a couple people come in the house over the course of the next week or so. Meanwhile, the attorney's working on their stuff, the lender's working on their stuff. It's going to seem like nothing's happening for a week or two. It's cool. Everything's okay. I'm right here with you. Okay. Remember, we should always have, at the end of almost every conversation that we have with a prospect, and especially with a client, should say something to the effect of, here's what's going to happen next. Okay. You do not want you to get off the phone with a prospect and them not to know what's happening next, because it's like you're not their guide, right? A guide tells you what's happening next. If you don't tell them what's happening next, they wonder where their guide is, and they wonder why they're paying their guide so much money. Does it make sense? Okay, we're going to update the opportunity, right? Because now we know more information about the file, like when it's going to close and what the commissions are going to be and all that stuff. Right? We go back to our call list and say, hey, I know I called you 3 days ago to tell you the home's active, but we already got a buyer. And in fact, we have 4 backup offers. So I'll ask you again, when was the last time you thought about selling? Right? We're doing business here. Who do you know? Okay. We fill out the commission agreement. Okay. Commission agreement is a document called the instructions to closing attorney. Okay. I think that it's / commission agreement as well. And what that does is it tells the attorney, it's only signed between the agents, okay, but it tells the attorney what the commission rate will be, and then it'll be there for them to create the final settlement statement, Okay. Next thing we're going to do is negotiate repairs. Once we negotiate repairs, we're going to update the Google Drive and DocuSign because now we have more executed paperwork. Okay. There's a document, we talked about this a little yesterday, called an information sheet. The attorney, when they get a new file, will generally send out an information sheet for both the seller and buyer. For the seller, it's going to have things like, you know, where are you planning to move to? What's all your contact information? Do you currently have a loan on the property? Do you currently have any secondary loans on the property? Do I have your permission to get a payoff letter from Wells Fargo or whatever? Right, those types of questions. We schedule the closing. Remember, we talked about this yesterday. The first person to schedule the closing usually gets to schedule it, right? If you wait around and let the other party schedule it, then it might interfere with your day, right? Meaning if the closing's at 2 o'clock, well, then I can't pick up my kid from school. I don't want to do that. Picking up my kid from school is important. So I don't want the closing to be at 2. So I'm going to call and make sure the closing's at 10 because that fits into my world better. Y'all see that? It's being intentional. Everything should have intentionality around it. Otherwise, you're gonna just, the other person's gonna be intentional and you're gonna deal with it. Right? And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then you just got to change your plans. And I really liked that. Okay. So at this time, I'm also by the way, all like the last 15 things all happen within a day or two. I mean, all this is happening pretty quick. Okay. The next thing is the lender introduction and checkup, right? So for example, if I'm on the seller side, I've already called the lender to say, hey, I'm the listing agent of 123 Hill Street in Smyrna. Your buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, have submitted an offer. I just want to check in to see, you know, can you tell me a little bit about this? Have you seen their tax returns? Have you seen their income? Have you seen their credit score, right? Do you anticipate any issues with this file, right? What are your major concerns? Is there anything I can do to help? Have they been cooperative? I'm not asking questions like what's their credit score and how much do they make? That's none of my business. I just want to know, in their professional opinion, is this thing going to get to the closing table? Right? So now a week or two later, or maybe not even a week or two later, I'm calling and saying, hey, congratulations, Joe, over at Shelter Mortgage, right? We got ourselves a deal here, right? This is how to reach me. Is this the best way to reach you? Is there anything I can do to help you right now? Are you missing any paperwork? This is how to reach me. I'm on your team, right? I go into the sale knowing that I'm going to do 100% of my job and probably 50% of everyone else's job. And I'm totally fine with that.
Bill,
Yes.
question. If that says, I'm not trying to nitpick, I'm just trying to get a clear timeline. If this says introduction, shouldn't I have already done that? And at this point, it's just a checkup. At what point do I introduce myself to the lender? Once we go binding?
No. So let me restate that. You're not nitpicking. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if I'm on the seller side, almost without fail, I can't imagine a situation where I would allow a seller to sign a contract with a buyer whose lender I haven't spoken to. Okay, that's a deal breaker for me. I got to speak to the lender. Okay, if I can't get the lender on the phone, then I don't know what's going on. Okay, so I would say that really should probably read lender checkup, implying that I've already been introduced to them. Right, we've already had a conversation. The attorney, I mean, I don't necessarily need to put the attorney through the ringer so much. So I would say, like, it's okay if we're working with an attorney that I don't know that well. So I'll keep the attorney introduction and checkup. So I'll just reach out to the person who, you know, I was usually working with the same attorney, so I knew who to send the file to and stuff. But if it was an attorney that I wasn't familiar with, then I would, you know, call up the attorney and say, hey, I understand that you're the closing attorney for 123 Hill Street in Smyrna. Just wanted to make sure that you got the file. I'm the listing agent. This is how to reach me. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'm here to help you. I'm excited to work together. What do you need now? Right? I want them to know right off the bat, no matter who my client is, I am prepared to do whatever it takes to get this thing to the closing table. Right?
Hey, Bill, I have a question about that.
I will do my job and most of your job. Sometimes I just need you to get out of the way and let me bring this thing to the closing table. Markia, go ahead.
So when you say that you should talk to the lender prior to working with the buyer, are you suggesting that, like, just say if you get multiple offers before you and your client select the offers, just say, hey, let's call this lender to see if we can get in contact, or is this like,
Oh yeah.
we've accepted this offer, now, like, let's call the person?
No. So it's not, let's say you get 25 offers. It's not necessary to call all 25 people, right? But I would take the best one. I'd
Yeah, the
say,
best,
hey,
right?
let's assume for a second this lender is going to be A-OK, and offer number 17 is the winner, or about to be the winner. Then I would call the lender for offer 17 and make sure.
And that wouldn't be steering your seller to go with, like, if the seller really like a person and, you know, maybe like a letter and like the offer, and then you're like, hey, I don't think that we should do this one because I can't get in contact with the lender. That's just you being a good agent and kind of you being upfront with them, not necessarily you steering them into a different offer. I guess it's what
I think that the responsiveness and professionalism of the buyer's lender is a part of the offer.
Okay.
Right. So if,
yeah, no,
I mean,
so
I'm
it's
not
just
saying
something
like
that you
if
can add value, something that you can add value when doing your seller's presentation to say, hey, before we make an offer, you know, just kind of be upfront. I want to call them and just see that we can be in contact to protect you and make sure that we're not going to have any hiccups.
Right. So as part of my professional services to you, prior to accepting any offer, I will take the time, with your permission, which generally they'll give you, right? I've actually never had somebody say don't do that. I'll reach out to the lender of our favorite offer and make sure that there's no signs of concern. And if it has some signs of concerns, I'll share them with you, and then you can decide what you want to do. I'm not suggesting I call the lender at 7 p.m. and he hadn't called me back at 7:15 and I freak out. I'm talking about, like, I got a hold of this guy and he says he can't even remember who I'm talking about. I'm like, whoa. We're talking about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Can you look them up real fast? Because I'm about to encourage my seller to pull their home off the market when we got 50 other offers. I need to know you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So then we're working through the financing contingency, or just checking in for updates on the financing contingency and the appraisal contingency. We're double checking with our stipulations and notes to make sure there wasn't anything unique about the file that that needs to be done. So for example, if it says like seller to share HOA documents within 3 days of binding agreement, that would go on the calendar. And then I would be staring at the calendar all day, as would my assistant. And then she would say, hey, Bill, don't forget about that. Hey, Bill, don't forget about that. Hey, Bill, don't forget about that. Right. Or I'll just do it. Right. Complete all repairs. So you're kind of organizing all the, the HVAC guy or the plumber guy or the landscaping guy, whoever needs to come to the house to tend to whatever you've agreed to do. Okay. We're watching for the clear to close. The clear to close is when the buyer's lender is completely satisfied and is ready to issue the money. Okay. Get a closing gift, attend the closing, take the photo at closing. Then once you're done, you take your commissions back, and this is assuming you didn't do a pay at close. Do any final paperwork and compliance. Update the client contact file, right? Because now they don't live at that house anymore, right? So you want to edit that, right? If you now have a, like, let's say I've categorized my database. If I put them in a group called seller, it means that I was compensated to help them be a seller. If they're called a buyer, then I was compensated to help them be a buyer at some point in the future, or I'm sorry, some point in the past, right? So then I would tag them or change the tags however I needed to keep up with this. The fact that now I've served them, right? We're done. We're done with that transaction, I should say. Okay. Update the opportunity, post the picture, send a video of congratulations. Now I'm going to cold call again around the sale. Hey, I know I called you 3 weeks ago to told you it was listed. Then I called you 3 days later to told you it was pending. Now it's sold. What we know is that when one home is listed and sells, generally 2 other people think about selling. It happened to sell for $10,000 above list price. That may have an impact on your equity. Would you like to learn more? Right? We're in the business of building relationships, remember? Okay, handwritten note to seller, send out the survey, and we do the same stuff that I was talking about yesterday with the co-op agent. I write a handwritten note to the co-op agent. I'd collect a video and written testimonial from the client. I'd post the testimonial online. I'd move the file to the closing section or closed section on Google Drive. I'd write a testimonial for the co-op agent. Okay, that's surprising and delighting, by the way, right? They're not expecting that. Okay, and then I'd because I was, you know, I had a desire to attract people to Keller Williams. I was initiating conversations with all my non-KW co-ops to talk a little bit about their business, right? Again, if you ask an agent, how's business? The vast majority of agents are going to start complaining pretty quickly, right? And the complaints are going to go down one of two paths. Either I don't have enough leads or I've got too many leads. Most of the time it's I don't have enough leads. And is it fair to say that Keller Williams can solve those problems? And if they have too many leads, what they're telling you is they're just really busy and they're lacking the quality of life that they really wanted at the beginning, and they just need some help. Well, did we write the book on that? I think we wrote a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent that guides people on how to grow. Isn't that correct? Okay, so is there a company that's better suited to help with that challenge? I don't think so. Okay, and then I would call the seller a week after the closing. Hey, everything, you know, anything I can do for you? And I didn't really call them. I didn't typically call them like on the year anniversary of, hey, this is the year anniversary of when you sold that house in Smyrna. I didn't really do that so much because most likely they bought something nearby or, you know, in Metro Atlanta. And then I'd call them on the anniversary of that sale. Does that make sense? Was this helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, is there anyone on the call that either plans on taking no listings ever or one listing ever?
Bill, I have a question.
Hang on one sec. So my
Okay.
point is that if you're going to do something more than one time, you should have a system for it, right? And a system, think about a system as like, let's say you're a pilot. You sit in the pilot seat and there's a long checklist of check that radar, check that sensor, check that temperature, check that, you know, whatever map. And you don't turn on the engine until all that stuff is done. This is our version of that. Does that make sense? The cool part is you don't have to create it. You can just steal it from me. Okay, and tweak it to whatever you want to do. You don't want to cold call neighbors? Take it off the list. The seller doesn't know, they don't see this, right? They're not like, hey, according to Keller Williams pre-list package, you skipped page 17. They don't know that stuff. They just see what they see. Chantrell, go ahead.
Yes, for someone like myself that has never had a listing, those were a lot of steps. So who would walk me through those steps when that day comes?
You can ask myself, you can ask your partners in the group here, you can ask our agent mentors. You know, we have agent leadership council people, the brokers, the Robin, Susan, Kathy. I mean, you got a bunch of people that can help you with those types of things. You know,
are there any videos or?
I mean, there's a lot of videos on things like running comps and talking about disclosures and things like that. But, you know, if, for example, you get to the point where you're like, schedule photographer, I don't know a photographer, right? You just put in the chat, hey, who's your favorite photographer, right? Or if it's like, hey, the bill sheet says I'm supposed to update the seller information sheet. What does that mean? Just send me a message and say, help. What does that mean? Right. I know it all seems very overwhelming right now. Maybe it'll sink in soon, but this is designed to make it less overwhelming, not more overwhelming. I don't know if that worked or not, right? But that's the design of it. Just think, before you showed up this morning, you didn't even have this sheet. Now you have it, right? So if it's like, hey, how do I get, if I had asked you at 7:30 this morning, what do you do with when you get a seller? You'd say, I don't know what the hell I'll do when I get a seller. Now you know exactly what to do. Make sense?
It
All right,
does.
guys.
And can I just kind of give her a little bit of comfort that you're
Please.
going to hear it more than once.
Oh yeah.
And repetition is our friend. And always know that, like you said, you can reach out to us. And if we don't know, well, I'll ask and then we'll all learn together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Greta, for sharing that. 100%. We have, I'm proud of the culture that we have created here of a bunch of kind, helpful people. What do you do when your referral agent doesn't respond? I'm proud of the culture that we've established here, and the room is full of positive, helpful, cooperative, contributing agents. And there'll be times when you know the answer, and there'll be times when you need the answer. So my request of you is just be a positive contributor. And when you need help, you'll get it. And when you're able to give help, I would expect that you would be happy to give it. What do you do when your referral agent doesn't respond? I would check in with the client and say, hey, is everything going okay? Right? Anything I need to be aware of? And when the referral agent doesn't respond, I don't know how long it's been, but it might be time for a little reanalysis of the expectations. Hey, I was just looking for a quick update. Is asking for an update every 2 weeks too much? Right?
I like that one.
Remember, it's been family reunion. They're probably catching up a little bit. I mean, who knows? It could be anything, right? Somebody could be sick. We'll try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'd first check with the actual buyer or seller. Hey, is everything going okay? Anything I need to do or need to help with? And generally when somebody says, hey, they're not responding, it's because there was a lack of expectation setting, right? Or they overpromised and are currently under delivering, which is a different discussion. Make sense? But
Yes.
overall, look, if you're not happy with the experience that you're experiencing, then that'll be the last time that man or that woman gets business from you. I mean, I'm constantly top grading, right? If I had a B+ experience with a carpet guy, and I know or I believe that there's a carpet company out there that'll give me an A+ experience, the B+ experience guy loses the relationship with me. And therefore, you guys should be saying to yourself, what am I doing every day to make certain that everyone I come in contact with is experiencing the best possible experience possible? Because if I give a mediocre experience to somebody, remember that chances are they're going to get a delivery today from Amazon when they just pushed a button 2 days ago. And then they get something showing up at their door, and that's an awesome experience. Then they deal with you and they can't get the information they need in a timely fashion, or you disappoint them, or you forget to call them. They're going to drop you so fast, it's not even funny. Right? We're not just competing against other real estate agents. We're competing with all service providers, right? And experience providers. Does that make sense? All right, y'all. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate you as always.